there's a lot of, try to bring a lot of information there about the various issues. You know, we talk about the House Bill 15, which is our sonogram bill, and we've made a note of which senators 100% Republicans voted for, 5 Democrats voted for it. So we want everybody to make sure that they know who it is that supported this bill, because that's our focus. Our focus is on who has decided that they know best. They know better than we do what we do with our bodies, and how birth control somehow isn't a key to helping protect families. And
I guess from the discussion, the bigger issue is more than the woman's body, but the psychological piece of that, with the family involvement and the choices, and it's got to be a tough discussion between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but once that decision is made, they're going to proceed with that, and they may involve a ministry. And, you know, it could be a religious issue that they have to reconcile in the decision-making process. So, you know, to just trigger the idea that it's like, I'm pregnant, well, let's just go get an abortion tomorrow. And then we'll go to Walmart. You know, it's not that way. And
my friend Mark that I was telling you about, she told me that that's the first time she's ever heard her son cry on the phone.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to deal with for people. And the thing is, and once we kind of dove off into this, what I find is a lot of women that had never talked about having to go through those decisions. And like I said, this isn't the abortion issue is not the main focus here, but it is a component of it. And it brings out a lot of emotions for those women that have had to deal with it. And to have our governor and our legislators try to embarrass women or shame women or try to control women on those aspects is just so absolutely offensive
to
the women.
Speaking of offensive, if you sit home and watch any TV at all, and you watch these commercials that are out there now, and I think pretty much everybody knows the ones that I'm talking about, that's offensive.
Yeah. Well, that unfortunately leads to a lot of this misogyny that we're seeing in terms of our communication.
Right.
I think, I mean, it's some of the like Victoria's Secret advertising. I mean, it's.
Well, I'm speaking about specifically these enhancement drugs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm talking about
we've
network
talked about
TV.
that before, and actually, I mean, one in particular absolutely
crosses a line?
No, it's birth control. There's absolutely no way 2 people sitting in 2 different bathtubs can get involved. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I don't care what happens. There's not going to be a baby made, and so, I got to disagree that not all those drugs that are advertising promote this kind of behavior, because all it does is make you sit in a bathtub next to a bathtub and watch the sunset, and that's cool.
And you're speaking from experience.
Well, the thing about it is,
2 bathtubs ordered.
These commercials are getting worse.
And what's odd is how there seems to be no outcry, or at least I'm not hearing it, about the Viagra, Cialis, all the name brand drugs that are used to increase sexual activity.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Insurance can cover that. But we don't hear about the church exempting coverage and saying, well, okay, we don't feel that we should have to provide contraception for the woman, but we'll go ahead and we'll cover Viagra. Hello?
Yeah.
How about some hypocrisy there?
And Mark, I want to know why men are having this problem. So, I mean, why is this problem?
And I want to know why you're asking me that question. Now, okay, just to deflect and change the topic, I'm going to step around that. One of the things that I'm afraid may happen, and it's going to be one of those things that we won't know until it's happening and we catch it. But abortion is legal based on Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade. We've got, and one of the aspects that drove that was the back alley abortions. These clinics, or so to speak, and some of them midwives and things like that. And it was unsanitary. Women were dying. They were bleeding out. It was really, it was a terrible situation.
It was.
Are we not going to possibly put enough pressure psychologically on women that they will seek out this type of procedure because they don't want the embarrassment? They don't want to go through all of, I mean, it's psychologically hard enough. And now we're going to make it so hard that they will go this way, and then that service will then start to spring back up.
It scares me. It scares me.
There's some states where you can't even get an abortion now. So I see where that could be the case.
That is true.
Well,
I don't think they realize that once a woman's determined to have an abortion, they're not going to change their mind because the services are not available easily. There's cases where they just cannot have that baby.
Well, economically, if it comes down to an economic decision, they will look at that as something that they're going to have to do because long term they're going to have an economic burden placed on them. It's going to be a hardship on the child, and they don't want to bring that child into this world for whatever reason. They will seek it out, and they'll either go to another state. Some Republicans typically have enough money; they leave the country, but. You're right. It's going to be done, but if we promote this type of pressure, and that's my concern, is that these back alley abortions are going to spring back up. We're not going to be aware of it until women start bleeding out and dying.
Well, when you think about back alley abortions, it's a little bit of a complex issue, a very complex issue when you go back to when this was going on before, because the attitudes towards women in marriage were different back then than what they are now. So I don't have the statistics, but I would say that a great number of those abortions that took place back then were out of probably shame from the fact that this child didn't belong to the person you were married to. And so, that was...
Well, I'm sure that doesn't happen today.
Well, it happens today. It happens today, but that's just an example, and Andrea has something to say about that, I can see.
Well, the only thing that, and I know we keep getting back on the abortion issue, but the one thing that actually
it is the crux of this issue.
Yeah, well, it is to a lot of people, but I think that the birth control, hopefully, if everybody has access, as the president's wanting to make sure that every woman in this country has free access to birth control. Okay? That hopefully will preclude the majority of this issue. It will fix, if we educate our young women and men and we provide birth control, then hopefully there will be so few abortions that will be needed that, or in their own minds, I mean, that doesn't preclude the problems with the fetus, that sort of situation. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The young women that we're thinking with a mind that has already experienced a lot in life. What we're talking about here with these teenagers and young women that are still home, that have, for whatever reason, they got too drunk at a party, something happened, they ended up getting pregnant, and they don't dare go to their mother and father. There's a lot of kids that are raising themselves these days. And so what is that girl, when she hits that situation and she doesn't dare go home, who's she going to turn to? And we're eliminating Planned Parenthood,
well, there's a lot of kids raising it. And that really brings up a question I was fixing to ask. With you say this president is trying to provide a pathway for people to make intelligent decisions, to have access to contraceptives. Yet there seems to be across the nation, an attack on Planned Parenthood. Yeah. And actually, because of Planned Parenthood does have involvement with abortion clinics,
Some do, yes.
But it's a small percentage. It's a very small percentage of what they do. But the rest of what they do, most people would consider great work.
Absolutely.
Well, and Texas actually has decided to fund Planned Parenthood.
Actually,
because they determined that it would be less expensive in the long run.
Well, they did, but then the ideology that Governor Perry came back with was to strip the funding from Planned Parenthood to gut the abortions. Okay, the fact is the Hyde Amendment made it illegal for any federal funds to be used for abortions. I mean, we have a law in the books for that. Okay, their infinite wisdom in going after the abortion issue by getting rid of Planned Parenthood, which takes away 97% of all the good that they do, for that 3% of abortions that are actually performed in some clinics, not even all clinics. Planned Parenthood offers mammograms, pap smears. You can go as a young woman to them, have questions answered. They'll talk to you realistically, not this abstinence stuff, but realistically about your body. They help you. So, I mean, Planned Parenthood does so much good. And to tie, this is why it concerns me when we try to tie that abortion issue onto the tail of the Planned Parenthood issue. It works good for the other side emotionally because they're all caught up in having that fight. But the reality is you've got 90% of what they do is being something that has nothing to do with that other than trying to prevent the abortion. So that's why we try to keep our focus more on the good that Planned Parenthood does for our communities, for our young women, our young families. And so for that to remain the focus, the rally that we had, that was more what our focus was about.
And they also help men get vasectomies. So it's not just the women. I mean, they help.
I vote more vasectomies myself.
Oh, yeah.
I would think that you would. Actually, a lot of women would vote for a little more extremism in that regard, but talk about something different with Planned Parenthood. You talk about the educational programs they've got. How am I doing on these sidestep issues? So actually, you're saying that there are educational programs are realistic. They're not actually going in there and teaching you where to put the aspirin.
No. No. And Senator Kyle, he needs to go back and take his math class over again.
That's the argument. I mean, whenever I hear elected officials who we think are smart enough to actually make laws for this nation, to make laws for this state, make statements similar to the ones that we've heard, basically, put an aspirin on your knee and cross your legs and hold aspirin, that's birth control. That's ridiculous.
Studies have actually found that when the abstinence
Are you fixing to tell me that works?
No, I'm about to tell you the opposite. Studies have found that when abstinence only is the only thing that is taught, that the unwanted pregnancies actually go up in those areas.
Yeah, don't confuse them with facts.
Well, okay, are we talking, is that demographically broken down in age groups? Because one of the things that I've always found is in the younger age groups, I know with me when I was growing up especially, pretty much anything that you didn't explain, and you just said don't do it, I was going to figure out a way to find out why.
Of course.
Well, of course. I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here because I'm sitting here listening and thinking about things that might be said to counteract what we're trying to explain today. Okay. Back when I was a kid in Catholic school, abstinence worked, but I'll tell you why. Because we truly believed we were going to hell. So there's a bigger societal issue going on here.
Absolutely.
That